Hey, so did our title get your attention? I really hope that it did, although I'm very certain it's going to make a lot of people very, very angry because what I said in that title really challenges convention. It challenges a lot of commonly held beliefs about how relationships work, how marriage works, and more. And I'm going to actually take a few minutes to explain why I have said this statement or the title of this video and why I believe it takes two can be a very destructive way to think in a relationship like marriage. My name is Sven Masterson, and I'm one of the co-founders and principal mentors of the Mentoring Men community. We're a community that's devoted and dedicated to the betterment and well-being of men. And because we're devoted to these concerns in men and men in general, we oftentimes meet men in extreme relational crisis and distress. That usually happens when men just receive some pretty terrible news from their wife or partner, maybe something like, I need space, I am having an affair, I love you but I don't love you anymore, I'd like a separation, I'd like a divorce. And then we also have other men who've lived in a much longer and protracted crisis of no or low intimacy, sometimes for months, sometimes for years, and many times, unfortunately, for decades. And as we have helped hundreds of men in our community to overcome really themselves, we've watched and learned a lot of things and seen a lot of patterns in men that are really ineffective for helping them to have the life that they want. And one of them, a commonly held belief, is this idea that it takes two. Now, this is a very nuanced idea, and so I want you to stick with me, follow my explanation, and I'll clarify some kind of nuance and edge cases to this. The problem with the belief that it takes two is that it centers a man around the idea that he cannot have the life he wants until something outside of himself changes. And that places a man in a really awkward spot. First of all, it makes him at least partially victimized by what that other person does, and it makes him wait and stall and experience limbo in his pursuit of things like his desire, his needs, his wants, and things that are important to him. And so when a man rehearses this kind of mantra, it takes two, it takes two, it takes two, he is subtly and discreetly giving away part of his power over his own life to his partner. And he's doing that because he's trying to have this kind of horse trading approach to his happiness. Well, if I give up this, she's got to give up that. If I do this, she's got to do that. And this is actually a really horrible way to live a relationship like marriage or a romantic relationship. You know, that might work great if we're doing commerce, if we're exchanged in business. But marriage and romantic relationships are not business relationships. As much as we want to treat them like a contractual relationship where I give you this and you give me that, the more a man and woman do that in a relationship, the worse and worse and worse it gets, because it creates this trading effect, this ledger keeping, this balance sheet, and that begins to erode the marriage. But even more insidious than that, the deeper problem here is that a man has placed the things that are most significant to him, his sense of health, well-being, happiness, value, worth, significance, into the hands, pocketbook, or unfortunately genitals of someone else. And when that person is not so willing to give it back to him under the conditions that he wants, he gets distraught, he gets unhappy, he gets resentful, he experiences contempt. And if he believes that it takes two, that man will be stuck. And even worse, he'll be obsessively fixated on when his partner will change so that he can have what he wants. And this puts a man in a horrible spot because he's stuck. And so this is where we meet these men. They are stuck. They report feeling like they're waiting. They report feeling like they're in limbo. And in general, these men have lost their power and agency over their very own life. And they do that because they don't know better. They believe that's how relationships work. It takes two. And so this is why we say that's a BS idea. That's a great way to get yourself locked into a state of waiting and limbo and unhappiness and resentment and contempt and eventually malice and even hatred. And so we meet men all the time that after decades of this, they've just had enough. They're up to here. You could just see the rage just wants to come out. And that rage is there because they have lived this life of subjugation to their partner under the belief that it takes two and the other person is not giving their best to that too. And so we would suggest from working with men that no, it does not take two. In fact, there's plenty of examples even in nature, which I'll show you, in which that is just patently false. The first one is this idea of magnetism. And so I have some magnets here, being a homeschool family that I am. My kids have all this kind of science stuff at home. And so here's two magnets, right? Two. These magnets will not touch each other. Now, if you're at all scientific, you already know where I'm going to go with this. Does it take two to fix this repulsion problem? Does it? No. It takes one. The moment I perform a change in this magnet, let's call this the male. I want you to see what happens. Oh, look at that. What used to be pushing away, what used to be pressure, is a key word for men to understand in relationship, has now converted by a change in one magnet from pressure, pushing away, to attraction. That's the concept of polarity. Polarity is baked into the fabric of the universe, and it's rational then that it's baked into the fabric of relationships. And so when a man comes into our care and community believing it takes two, it takes two, it takes two, we have to spend a significant time saying, no, it just takes one. It takes a change in one to basically flip the polarity from a person that pushes away to a person that attracts. Now, we already know that this man most likely was able to attract that partner before. He's married to her. And so it's not like it's unprecedented that this man could attract this woman. And so something happened. Something changed along the way. What happened? That polarity in that man flipped, and it happens in most men in a long-term relationship, because what ends up happening is they slowly give up their sense of self, their sense of autonomy. This is a process of becoming enmeshed with another person and becoming kind of entangled, and that man loses sight of what is himself and what is his partner. And so when he starts to experience unhappiness, instead of looking inside, he looks outside. And this is the beginning of what causes this problem. Because when a man is unhappy and he believes the problem is outside, he's laser focused on his partner, like this magnet. And so he chases her around saying, when are you going to change? When are you going to be different? When are you going to start looking at me again? When are you going to start respecting me? When are you going to start loving me? When are you going to start sleeping with me? And this guy will chase. And chasing energy in a male is just not attractive to females, right? And it's going to go on indefinitely. That's what happened. That man became afraid. He became afraid that he would lose things that were vital and important to him. And in his fear, and really in his lack of confidence that he could manage and provide those things in himself, he transferred them to his partner and said, here, you hold on to these for me. Would you please manage this whole area of my inner life? Because I feel a little insecure in doing so. And so what makes a man flip his polarity and become kind of the pushing away is really, at the end of the day, insecurity. And so when we meet men in unhappy marriages, unequivocally, they're insecure men. Now, that is a bombastic statement, I know I'm going to get haters and trolls that are going to comment on this video and be like, yeah, just let her go, man. It's a woman problem. Those are the comments, believe it or not, of insecure men. Men who cannot fathom that maybe they have an issue and that they have asked other people to manage and control their life, and they just plain don't like how other people handle that responsibility. When the real issue here is that our lives as humans are not intended to be delegated and subjugated to other people. You and I came into the world whole and complete, and the moment we start to doubt that, we place that question, the answer to that question, outside of us. We ask other people in our insecurity to answer that. And so in marriage, a man starts to forget that he's whole. He has no idea. And so he looks to his partner to basically to be validated, to feel affirmed, to feel complete. And so he chases her around with this chasing energy, this needy, desperate energy that is not polarity-wise the right kind of energy. And so it pushes the woman away. And the woman will say, this feels icky. This feels like pressure. I feel like I'm constantly under pressure from you. That's a key word for women. And if you're a woman watching this and you're in a horrible marriage, you're probably saying amen right about now. And you're probably like, yeah, that's right. Because it doesn't feel good to have a man chase you around to try to get something from you. And men think they just have a high libido here, but that's BS too. Most men that think they have a high libido have high neediness, have high insecurity, and so they chase women as a way to get a temporary fix to say, oh, okay, all is right in the world. I'm okay. See, women like me. I must be a good guy. Now, I know I'm saying some hard things. I also know I'm saying some things going to hurt some feelings, might bring up some shame for men. I'm not trying to cause you emotional pain. I'm trying to cause you sobriety. Because if you're under the belief that you have a woman problem and if she would just change, you're already living in a defeated story where you do not own your power. She does. And that is why you don't have a happy relationship. Because when you give other people the power over you, you can't be happy until they tell you that you can be happy. And you usually have been very opaque and unclear about what the conditions of that happiness are. So what we do on Mentoring Men is we help guys that are depolarized from insecurity to be secure. We just say, you know what, let's not focus on her for a while. Now, granted, we are under no delusion that women need no growth. We firmly believe all humans need to grow. All humans need to discover things inside of them that are not as they should be, right? But we're a men's community. If we wanted to focus on women, we would be a women's community. And so we just kind of say, all right, look, let's just leave that alone for now. Let's focus on this guy. And we work with him to overcome the insecurity, the fear, the anxiety he has, the shame, and we slowly help him do this. And then, again, we're doing this outside of the context of a relationship, helping him to stop focusing on the relationship. That's just a euphemism for focusing on her. It's the belief that all the answers to my unhappiness and pain are in other people. It's not true. All internal or all emotional pain that we generally have has an internal element. And if we solve that and it's solvable, we learn great things about the world. We realize, you know what? Yeah, sure, my partner needs growth, but that was never my problem. My problem was a lack of clarity about my own sense of worthiness, my own sense of wholeness, my own sense of well-being. I didn't have those, and so I chase. And so we help men to get that right, help them to kind of re-engage with their relationship, become attractive men instead of pressuring, needy, desperate men, and the relationships generally become fixed, including decades-long sexless marriages, which most people don't believe are addressable, but we see this in our community. And we see it only when a man is willing to stop focusing outside of himself. That's really the whole ball game, folks, is that when we focus outside of ourselves, the answers are outside of ourselves. And we'll sit there tenaciously like a dog on a bone, watching and watching and watching and watching and waiting and waiting and waiting, all the while getting tremendously angry, tremendously resentful, tremendously hurt that the life we want is not happening to us. And really, it's a delusion. We're caught in the delusion that the answer to life and happiness is outside of us in someone else. Oftentimes, they actually think the same thing. And so this is the gridlock of an emotionally enmeshed relationship. This is the gridlock in a sexless marriage. You have a man who wants sex. He wants monogamy and he wants to stay married. And that's his wants. And he believes all the answers to those are in his wife, who she has her own wants. She wants to not have to be pressured or feel pressured to have sex. She wants monogamy also, and she wants to stay married. And so you have two people with competing needs, two people with a set of wants and desires that are really not resolvable, but yet they're asking the other person to fix that dilemma. We'll talk more about that in another video. That's a whole other subject about the dilemma nature that men and women face. But I want you to understand that it's caused by believing that the answer to my dilemma is outside of me. It's just not. I can prove that. We can prove that because when we help a man to step into that idea, into that belief, and he flips that magnet, his whole world changes. His dilemma goes away. His life becomes happy and full. And that's when intimacy returns in those cases. That's when the relationship improves and heals. Now you might say, that sounds really wishy-washy. That sounds like voodoo. It's really not. This is actually demonstrable in the laws of physics, like thermodynamics. If you heat up two cold objects you have in a room, you heat one up really hot, it warms the other one up. So there's a pattern in the universe for that. There's the pattern of magnetism. If you flip the polarity in one, it changes the relationship it has with one. There's two examples right there from physics that I just demonstrated. It does not take two, it takes one. Let me give you one more, and that's the Pygmalion effect. The Pygmalion effect is this idea, it's a phenomenon that's been witnessed by psychologists, that when the expectations are raised, it improves the results of the thing that they were raised upon. Even works in mice. If scientists believe, for example, that a certain set of mice are deficient and have genetic problems, even though it's not true, those mice will actually experience inferior results in a lab. They'll actually die earlier. They'll be sick more often. It's really this bizarre idea. And so let's put this in the context of marriage for a moment. When you have a man who is just fixated on, when will my partner change? She's got a problem. She's got a problem. There's a certain Pygmalion effect to that. He's giving birth essentially to a relationship that is a bit of a train wreck, because he has got these expectations that are actually quite low. And so when we flip the polarity inside of a man by really addressing his insecurity and fear and anxiety, what ends up happening is it changes that man's perspective. It raises his expectations for himself. And so he stops feeling defeated and like he's waiting in limbo, and he starts feeling like he has possibility, that he has value and worth. Then he starts to look at his partner with the same perspective. Oh, she's not a horrible human being. She's not holding out on me. She's actually a lovely person. And so with these changed hearts, these changed disposition that happens inside of the man and inside of him towards himself, inside of him towards his partner, it warms the relationship. The change in one affects two. Now, like I said, we see this all the time in our community, and we wanted to share it with you today here, even if our title got you a little upset, because we really believe and know anecdotally at our work with men that it works, that if we change one, it changes both. Now, one other thing, I don't have the exact quote. I'll try to put it in the description below, but the Gottman Institute, who are considered, fairly astute with marriage research, have also found this similar pattern, that by and large, The attitude and actions that the man takes in a relationship will determine the outcome of the relationship. And so if you're a man watching this, you're unhappy, you're disillusioned, you're disgruntled, you're hurt, you're feeling a bit chapped by marriage. Maybe you're in a sexless marriage of 1 year, 2 year, 10 years, 40 years. I want you to give these words some thought. I want you to consider a new reality where it doesn't take two, it takes one. I want you to try that on for a while, because what you'll find is the moment you let go of part of the solution being in someone else is the moment that you are empowered over your own life, over your own future, over the outcome that you have in your life. You break this unhealthy dependency that you have on somebody else needing to operate before you can feel good. I want you to try that for a while. I want you to get in touch with me and get in touch with our community. If you scroll down, you'll see a link that you can click on to request a free session with myself or one of the other mentors in our community. We want to talk to you in greater detail about this. We want to talk to you about your situation and show you how these very concepts can illuminate what's going on there and help you begin to turn that around. Those sessions are complimentary. They're between 45 and 90 minutes. We don't ask you anything for them other than just your attention, and we give you ours, and we help you walk through that and send you on your way. If that is important to you, if that's something that you say like, man, I'd really like to experience that, again, those links are below. If you want help with insecurity and fear and anxiety as a man, that is really our expertise. We have a 6-month course dedicated to that journey. It's done in a community setting with other men who are on the same journey. It's very, very, very effective. Men give us all kinds of really stellar feedback about their experience with that. That information is below. There's a link. It's called The Renewed Masculine Man. You can learn more about that there. I've given you a lot of information. I hope I haven't overwhelmed you too bad. And I'm going to say goodbye now. I hope to see you on the other side of this camera before too long. Until then, have a great day.